Sidney Crosby's going to sign an extension. I've been saying that all along. I've been reporting that all along. There's no news to be had on that front for the simple reason that it's really not even going to be news when it happens. However, there are things to discuss within it. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Sid's contract, for anybody who doesn't know, that spanned 13 years, paid him an average annual value of, you guessed it, for professional sports, most superstitious player, $8.7 million. That's the AAV, $8.7 million. And while I'm sure nobody was more grateful for Sid's superstitious quality in this specific regard than those running the Penguins, it's my view that he shouldn't and won't settle for that much in his likely final contract. In fact, while understanding and respecting Sid's very, very real wish, and by the way, his top priority being that the Penguins will put together the best possible roster they can around him, and while all parties concerned, including Sid, would acknowledge that one path toward doing that is to go easy on the cap, because even $1 million here or there can make a difference in the kind of player who can be acquired. You know, I also could see a setting in which Sid says, you know, listen, I haven't been the team's top paid player in a long, long time. Not only was I behind Evgeny Malkin, that was known and discussed up front at the time. Gino's previous contract had him with an AAV of $9.5 million. But since then, there have been other players, and the highest paid player on the current roster, for anybody who doesn't know this, is Erik Karlsson. He's got an 11.5 AAV, though 1.5 of that continues to be paid by the Sharks. So he's at 10. And that's where I think Sid's going to end up, somewhere in that range. But I also think that, look, he's got all the leverage in the world. He can undo Kyle Dubas's tenure in Pittsburgh with the snap of a finger. He could say one thing that would turn everybody in town against the guy and basically ruin him. If not just in Pittsburgh, but like in the NHL. You were the guy who wiped out the final years of Sidney Patrick Crosby's career in Pittsburgh, you monster. But that's also not Sid's way, to say the least. If Sid was ever going to do that, he'd have done it after the Jake Gensel trade, believe me. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. But it feels to me like there's some convenient math here where Dubas can say to Sid, listen, I'm going to make you the highest paid player on the team because you should be, obviously. You should have been, obviously, while at the same time committing myself to putting together the best roster that I can under these constraints, while also attempting to stockpile draft picks so that the Penguins can continue to remain a healthy entity on and off the ice after you're gone. So here it is, Sid. Here's my offer, Dubas says. It's $10 million and one. Or, something like that. Something that makes him the highest paid player on the team. Because the only way around that, the only way that Dubas could circumvent that is if he were to say, hey, I can get you this player and this player over here if we can work something out. if we can say you're going to come in at a cap value of, let's just say for argument's sake, that's the same thing that he'd been getting paid for 13 years, that it stays at 8.7. I can get you this guy right here, and he'd make a big old difference. But I don't see that happening because I don't see who that player is, where that player would come from. It certainly isn't in free agency anymore. And the ship, of course, has sailed as it relates to the one player that Sid probably would have accommodated in that regard, and that would have been Jake. So do this. Set it up this way. We understand you're going to be our best player for the next 3 years. Why? Because you're Sid. Therefore, we will pay you accordingly. Even though an argument could be made that he's still worth well more than $10 million AAV. And heaven help us if he were ever actually on the open market. You'd find that out in about, a split second or so. When we come back, I was going to say it's J1Q. It's really not. It's a message from me, and I hope you take the time to listen to it. Hey everybody, instead of J1Q today, I want to take this opportunity to thank you, and I mean that in the deepest, most sincere way anyone could conceivably convey in this setting. Today marks the 10th anniversary of DK Pittsburgh Sports as a company. For those of you who know us only through the daily shots, and I understand that can be a bit of a separate vibe, let's just say that's the parent company. Exactly 10 years ago today, I left a pretty cushy newspaper job as a columnist and doing some online radio to become basically my own boss, to form my own company. I didn't like where the print industry was headed. I presume everybody's seen since then why. And at the same time, I felt like there was an audience for the content. I felt like there was a want for fun, informative, engaging stuff related to the Steelers, the Penguins, and the Pirates. And the reason that I'm giving this little spiel here today is that it was around COVID time that, gonna be honest with you here, I was so bored, had nothing to do. There were no games to cover. You couldn't even leave your house. And I came up with the idea to do not one, but 3 separate podcasts every morning, one on each of the 3 teams that I cover, while never once, apparently, considering how challenging that might be once the world got back to normal. But I digress. The Daily Shots changed our company in a lot of different ways. We were exposed to people who'd never heard of our written content at DK Pittsburgh Sports, who'd never heard of our company, who'd never heard of me. And it was a whole new world for us. It also was the first time that we'd ever put out any part of our product for free. So now I was hearing, it all felt like it was out of nowhere. I was hearing from people who, let's just say you can kind of tell sometimes when somebody doesn't have a whole lot of money. And I'm hearing from them saying, hey, I really love the show today. Or from the bus driver downtown who tilted open his window and yelled out at me something similar. That was new. And what ended up happening was that not only did the Daily Shot grow on its own, but the Daily Shot helped really, I think, solidify our brand and in turn solidify our independent company. So while it wasn't around for even half of our 10 years, it's a big reason that we made it to 10 years. If you still don't know what I'm talking about, on your phone, go to the App Store, go to Google Play. This is free. I'm not trying to sell you something. And search DK Pittsburgh Sports. Spell out Pittsburgh. Don't be lazy. Download that app that shows up. I'm going to repeat this. It's free. On there, you'll find not just all of our podcasts, all of our videos, but also all the articles that I write that our staff writes. We cover these teams everywhere they go. Haven't missed a game in 10 years. And we'd love to have you along for the full ride right there all in one spot. one more time, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you. And if you're interested in celebrating with us, if you happen to be in the area, we're having one heck of a bash today from 12 to 6 p.m. at 224 Fifth Avenue downtown. No invitation needed, no nothing needed. Just show up and say hi. We'll be back with a normal edition of all of the Daily Shots tomorrow.